Welcome back, everyone. The questions are still coming in about COVID-19 and the state's response. We are continuing our live conversation with Governor Chris Sununu to answer your questions from a social distance. So let's get right to those questions right now. Lindsay asks, how can you find out if your non-essential business went through the proper channels to stay open, and what rules do they need to follow?
So anyone who is deemed a non-essential business there's an email address directly on the Department of Business and Economic Affairs website, also known as nheconomy.com. They can go right to that email and file a request to the state to see if they want an exemption. If an employee is wondering whether that was filed or not, you just have to go through your employer to see. It would be up to them to file the request.
Lisa asks, I work in healthcare in people's homes and have close contact with people. I have a loved one at home that's very compromised. I'm afraid to work because of risk of infection and exposure. I tried to file for unemployment, but this was not listed under choices under COVID-19 reasons. Please help.
So a couple things there. We're creating new guidance for folks who do one-on-one care, whether it could be someone elderly, maybe it's someone, an elderly adult in the DD community that provides more of the one-on-one daycare services. And we're trying to appreciate that folks on those front lines may have concerns given the COVID virus and the contagion and connectivity with those individuals. So we're going to be providing some guidance documents. As far as why you would have been denied in terms of unemployment insurance, again, I'd have to go to the Department of Employment Security and see why that would not have qualified. If you're working for an organization, that should have worked. If you're self-employed, that should have worked as well. So I'm not sure of the specific situation, but as long as you're self-employed or part of an organization, if you were pushed, basically become unemployed because of COVID, you should be covered.
All right, Governor, here's a question from Sandy. In her own words, I don't understand why florists and other frivolous businesses are considered essential.
Well, I'll take the florist one up directly. Folks might want to send flowers to someone who might be sick in a hospital. They might want to send flowers to a funeral, something like that. I know that might not seem essential on the top of it, but at the end of the day, also given the dynamic where you can make those orders and have those delivered, it's a very minimal one-on-one contact with the customer. Some florists are doing curbside pickup now, which we strongly encourage, whether you call in to make your purchase. So I know what seems like something frivolous, laundromat. Someone said, well, why is a laundromat open? Who needs laundromats? Well, a lot of families rely on laundromats to wash their clothes, even though it might not be obvious to some. When you go through the line, we had someone ask about bike shops. Well, does a bike shop need to be open? The number of doctors and nurses that ride a bike to work would astound you in the state. We did some research on it and realized, yeah, that's part of transportation. You got to get transportation going. So I know a lot of this doesn't seem intuitive, but when we drill down on each and every one of these, there was something there that, again, allowed us to create that optionality or either deem them directly essential.
All right, thanks, Governor. Lisa has a question here. Do you think testing those working in grocery stores, post offices, restaurants, etc., would be an effective way to identify those most at risk for exposure and spreading COVID-19?
In an ideal world, we would test everyone immediately, right? We would ask everyone to quarantine, would test everyone, and then you could put those that are infected in a maintained quarantine status, and everybody else you could provide more flexibility, get the economy going faster. But it's just not practical. Right now, we're constantly increasing the number of tests that we can do in the state. We started at a couple hundred. Now we do a few hundred, and hopefully we'll get to 1,000 or more in the coming weeks. So we're always increasing our testing capability, to be sure. We have a lot of commercial labs that they're also increasing their capacity, as well as our public health lab. Dartmouth-Hitchcock has been a great partner. So we're always increasing that testing capacity. Unfortunately, we are not at, and nor will we likely ever be at, no state will be at a place where they can really just test everyone in a community. Also, what we're hearing now is the number of people that are transmitting the COVID likely in an asymptomatic way. We have so many folks that are actually COVID positive that we now believe that are transmitting it that don't even show symptoms. That's probably one of a much larger transport mechanism than we're really appreciating. So some of the data out there, I mean, that's very concerning in many ways. We still want to identify those who have it as quickly as possible. But again, if we could test everyone in a moment's notice, it's kind of like what they did in South Korea. Nowhere in America are they really in that situation, unfortunately.
It would be nice to get there. All right, so many questions for the governor and more when we come back.